Can you tell the difference between these two websites? In fact, can you even tell that they're different websites? Now, I know I'm being a little unfair. These are small images. I'm only showing them for a little bit of time, but this is basically at the heart of a lawsuit that my colleague Dom and I wrote about this week. I'm Sean O'Kane. I'm a senior reporter at TechCrunch. I cover all sorts of different things, but I love legal dramas, and this is an interesting one. This all starts back in 2013 when Christopher Gray founded an app called Sallie. Basically, he realized that it was really hard to find qualifying scholarships, especially for students who didn't have the time or access, and so he went on and created his own startup called Sallie. Now, fast forward a few years later, and he wound up on Shark Tank. He got a bunch of money from some people on Shark Tank, and then a couple years later, he got acquired by Sallie Mae. Sallie Mae, as you know, is a longtime student lender. It has some issues of its own, but Gray decided this is going to be a great way to make Sallie free. Finally, people like me who came from an impoverished background are going to be able to find scholarships and get better access to college. Now, Gray contends in his lawsuit and in an SEC whistleblower complaint that we reviewed that he was promised by executives at Sallie Mae that they wouldn't sell the personal data of students. Now, he says they've gone back on that promise and that when he raised concerns about them selling that personal data, which can include everything from age, gender, financial need, and even deeper, more personal information, they fired him. Now, that was back in 2024, and since then, Sallie Mae has rolled out the Sallie platform on its website. But let's go back to those websites for a second. Sallie is available on Sallie.com, not SallieMae.com. The difference here is that Sallie is billed as an education solutions company, and Sallie Mae is the one that still does all the bank stuff and is more closely regulated. Gray claims in his lawsuit that he was of the understanding that Sallie Mae, the bank, was going to be the one that was going to be featuring Sallie and was therefore going to have a lot more protections about private data. And that mattered to him because students are often minors who may not understand what they're handing over. But instead, Sallie Mae has the Sallie platform available on Sallie.com, which is owned by a completely different LLC that is not directly tied to the banking arm and therefore not subject to the same kind of strict regulations over privacy. What this means is that Sallie.com in its privacy policy is actually pretty open about the fact that it sells student data, and a lot of it. It sells this data to advertisers, to brands, and it even just started something called Backpack Media, where it's just openly promoting that it's got access to all these hard-to-reach target groups that are worth a lot of money to advertisers and brands. Which brings us back to these websites. Would you understand the difference when you were looking at these two? Especially if you were a stressed out high school kid thinking about where you wanted to go to college, how you were going to pay for it, how much you were going to have to take out in debt to be able to afford it. Would you be able to take the time required to look at both of these websites carefully and understand that they're two different things, even though they have the same logo in the corner? Let me know in the comments.